Hello and welcome to another episode of Alte, Herren. My name is Rob Runacres and I'm joined by my friend Hans Jodlind, who will introduce tonight's guest.
Yes, I will. Hello, George Zacharopoulos. How are you? How are things in Greece?
Hello, Hans and Rob.
Hi.
Things in Greece are actually quite cold since yesterday.
Oh.
Okay. I've been in Malta with 20 degrees and now I'm in Greece with 5 degrees Celsius. So it's rather weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no sympathy from Northern Europe, mate. No, none whatsoever.
I know.
Okay, George, can you start describing the HEMA scene in Greece and tell us a little bit how long it's been developing?
In Greece, actually, the HEMA scene has started developing a lot and progressing in the last 3 years.
Okay.
But we started back in 2004. As we developed what we were doing and were exploring and progressing and stuff like that, we realized that this introvert and closed thing ARMA has wasn't for us.
Okay.
So we quit ARMA in 2014 and we started interacting with the wider HEMA community the last 3-4 years. That's why maybe some people didn't know what's happening in Greece, because ARMA had this very closed thing, only ARMA stuff that didn't permit a lot of communication with other people and other groups. Now we are six clubs all over Greece that are fully functional and dedicated to HEMA, and there are about 10 more that have started including HEMA material into their curriculum and creating small study groups. So yes, The last 3 years the HEMA scene in Greece has took off really.
So just to clarify that, what you're saying is when it was with ARMA, it was very much a single club in one part of Greece, and then
yes.
Something happened. We don't really need to go into that, but basically you left ARMA, and it's been that HEMA has just exploded that.
In a sense, yes, because when we left ARMA, there were instructors and people that started creating study groups and going to clubs and introducing HEMA to other parts of Greece also. Actually, in Greece, there were 2 clubs back in ARMA. Back then, it was the official ARMA study group and a Northern Athens study group. And now there's the fully functional clubs in Salonika, Patra, there are 6 Greek cities, and 3 in Athens.
Okay,
excellent.
So what do you study in these groups? Do you have like similar manuals and similar weapons that you study, or is it kind of different groups study different weapons or so?
No, it's kind of similar because in a sense all the people grew from the same group we had. So some went to other cities. So the material we're doing is similar. Our basis, since we are coming from ARMA, was longsword. And longsword Lichtenauer tradition, not so much Meyer stuff. That came later. And a little bit of Fiore. In general, the earlier stuff, the medieval stuff, rather than the Renaissance. But in the Athenian groups, besides longsword, we have incorporated longsword and ringen, was always our first things. Then we are doing a little bit of Dusak and Messer, I-33 sword and buckler, a little bit. The last couple of years, one of our instructors has started doing the Bolognese system, Marozzo, Dall'Agocchie, the Anonymous. And since one of my labs, it's a rapier, we have started incorporating rapier and dagger also much more into our curriculum.
Okay, now I don't want to touch on the politics, as I said, about why you left ARMA and so on, but I'm wondering if skirting around that, you can actually say what was the spur to suddenly go on and spread into all of these different weapon forms?
We actually, although our main core of teaching according to ARMA was the longsword and the ringen, we always wanted to try different things. You see, compared to the US ARMA groups, we were kind of isolated. So the interaction was, and the intervention of what we were doing was much less. So we started doing our own thing. Some of us were already doing their own thing with subgroups inside their group, if you know what I mean. I mean, there are 2 people, 3, oh, do you like to study this weapon? The other guy said, yes, okay, let's go on weekends and study this weapon. But we didn't teach it in the official curriculum of the club because we had to follow the ARMA structure. So it was there, and it just came out. It sprang out.
Okay. And obviously, geographically, you're quite removed from a lot of, say, well, let's call it the more traditional HEMA areas. And you've obviously got, there is a tradition in Greece in various forms of combats, as I understand it. I mean, is there any definitively Greek forms that you study or are looking at?
You cannot actually study any Greek forms. You can experiment a little bit. Let's start from antiquity into post-revolution Greece. Let's go opposite. Post-revolution Greece, around the 19th century. The only 5-book treatise we have, it's a military saber by Philip Miller. Philip Miller was an officer, a Bavarian officer, attached to the army that came with King Otto in Greece, because we had the Bavarian king after the revolution. And the funny thing is that one of the only treatises in Greek we have is written by a German, so who says that he based his whole treatise on Christman's work. So it's German fencing in Greek language. Later on, there was also a treatise of classical fencing around 1872. Yeah, around 1872, with foil, saber, and epee, by a Greek guy, Nicholas Pyrgos, whose son later on won the Olympic Games in 1896, the first Olympic Games since antiquity. Let's go a little bit back, Byzantine era. Actually, it's the Roman Empire to have the proper wording. Still there, no sources, no treatises, just hagiography, folk sources of poems like the sagas, you know, treatises on army, on army tactics, nothing, absolutely nothing on dwelling on man-to-man fight. The funny thing in Byzantine is that since it was an empire, it contained a lot of Balkans, Greece, Near East, lots of ethnicities inside, and most of its armies, most of the time, were mercenaries. So it couldn't be one thing, doing one thing. There will be several things, several influences. So actually, if, it doesn't make sense to say a Byzantine system, because first, we don't have a source that defines it. Secondly, they didn't have much different from the other contemporary European people. I mean, especially when we start having HEMA stuff, late 30th century, they would fight similar with a straight sword and a buckler. They had a plus that they have a lot of influence from the Near East, so they used a lot of curved swords. So if you study what we study now in HEMA, the early stuff, plus some Ottoman or Arabic stuff for the curved swords, or Hungarian even, there you go, Byzantine. So it doesn't actually make sense to say a Byzantine system, because it doesn't exist as a system. So far we have found nothing. But as I said, it's similar to what other people do in areas of Europe and Near East, because it belongs to part of the empire. You want to ask something before I go to antiquity?
Yeah, I'm actually quite interested in this because in other episodes we've discussed the trouble with rapier, about how we talk about very much an Italian system or a Spanish system, which can be very broad brush, but in some ways we apply more modern nationalistic sensibilities to those sources. And I'm wondering if we look at something like 133 or Fiore or any of the German traditions, do you feel as someone who's in the medieval period may have an eclectic mix of troops, as you're saying, these traditions we may be in HEMA being a little bit false by trying to follow this sort of very much a purist ethnic route as were?
Yeah, because if we say Byzantine system, then we can say Holy Roman Empire-ish system. Because nations and stuff back there were not nations, were either parts of empire or different smaller areas of people. The Byzantine system is part of the European system. It doesn't exist as a system, but people, since they were like somewhere with one foot to the west, one foot to the east, they would fought similarly. I mean, they had the similar weapons. So it doesn't make sense to say I do a Byzantine system because it doesn't exist. But what you do is actually Byzantine also.
Okay, so going back to antiquity, I suppose the big thing in HEMA at the moment is Brice Lopez's gladiatorial reconstruction. I think that's possibly the area that I'd think of, and it's arguably not HEMA, but let's call it HEMA. Do you have anything like that for the Greek classical period?
Bryce was here last year. We trained together, and we talked about these recreation things. It was a really interesting conversation because, for example, for people must know that it's not widely known that Greco-Roman wrestling has nothing to do with Greeks or Romans. Okay. Still, it was easier to reconstruct Roman stuff than Greek. But what we do in Greece, we have, and of course it's all on experimental archaeology mindset. The historical advisor of our federation, which has a military history PhD, he has studied a lot writings and available sources on ancient Greece mostly. We're trying to do a small reconstruction of naval battles. I mean, the weapons they used, how they used them. Another project that is in the works, but it will be much later, it's how the phalanx was functioning as an army and as individuals when the lines were broken. Even when we were in Arma, we made a video about the use of spear in phalanx, where it's the usual question, overhand or underhand grip. We made a video about that, explaining what we think about it. So these are two projects that we will work on concerning the recreation of ancient, more ancient stuff than HEMA. A lot of people came asking me, oh, I want to learn Hoplon, the shield, and the Xiphos. No sources. Still assumptions. Nothing we can do. Maybe we were talking with Matt Gallas last summer that maybe the Marozzo Rotella and spear has similar qualities. But still, the Hoplon was a huge shield and heavy, carried on the shoulder also. Not just a rotella carried here. So we're experimenting. We toy around. I cannot tell you anything else. If we find something that we think it's reasonable, we present it. But still it will be an assumption, nothing more.
You just came back from Malta, from the event there. Yes. And you also mentioned talking to Brice Lopez and Matt Gallas, and I just wondered, do you take inspiration from other practitioners, and do you have people that you look to when it comes to learning?
Actually, there are people I respect for their dedication, for the research, or for their abilities. Yes, all these kind of people are always an inspiration. People who I have attended their seminars. Rob here, for example. I made a seminar of him in Florentia last year with him. I remember one thing from his seminar. I used it in sparring. It worked. So, from every guy that is doing serious, what I respect in HEMA is not a guy that is the super powerful fencer that he wins 100 medals, or I still respect him as a fighter, but I rather do research that can give me insights and put their insights into my own thing, my own thinking, way of thinking HEMA. And yes, Matt Gallas, for example, is a walking encyclopedia. He remembers all these funny details. Like I'm amazed how he's doing it. So yes, people that are dedicated, they are doing it for years. They are offering to the community with translation, research, with the way they fence. Are always an inspiration.
Well, those are all the positives. Now, obviously, on the news a lot, things have I don't know how things are right now, but things have been shown to be quite difficult in Greece with the economy and so on. How's that, and what other obstacles do you face at the moment to sort of spread the scene?
As you said, one of the main obstacles is the equipment because of the money. One of the reasons that some people are only doing longsword is because they don't have money to buy other weapons. We provide as a club, we have a lot of longswords, of course, wooden, plastic, steel, but we cannot provide other weapons, maybe a pair. But a pair is not enough. And people have problem with the equipment concerning tournaments, or more intensely, if they want to spar more intensely, they have to buy, first of all, this fucking thing we call gloves.
Yeah.
Which is the most expensive, still not perfect. And then, okay, you can work with the other stuff, like breast protection stuff. You can work with this stuff, but gloves, you cannot. And the people we have there are doctors or physiotherapists or artists, and they need their fingers. So you ask of them, I need you to invest on equipment, I need to invest on a sword, because doing plastic is not the same like working with steel, even in normal drills, and it's pretty demanding. And when a new beginner comes and asks me, what do I need? And we tell him, if you stay with us, if you like what we do and stay with us, we'll need this, 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 and if you want to go tournament, this, 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 this. And this guy asks, whoa. If you want to go to the tournament, you need around €1,000 something, or 800. That's the problem. That's the problem also, that we didn't work with more weapons in a bigger scale. People who had money or made or trying to buy things, like myself, for example, I was saving money to buy a sword. Okay, maybe I wouldn't go out. Maybe I didn't that, but not all people thinking the same. There are students that come and fence, have fun, and that's it. I work differently. There are not too many swords. You know that. There are never too many swords.
Okay, well, obviously the finances are a difficulty. How is it going on actually spreading the word of HEMA? I mean, do you evangelize it, or do you find that many students are coming in?
We do lectures and presentations quite often. We do official presentations like the one we did at the Athens War Museum, where we presented 2 Byzantine warriors in armor, and we introduced them what HEMA actually is. And the audience were officers from various European countries, normal people, soldiers, and all the people that involved in the military. That was one of our official presentations. We even go to municipalities of Athens and do lectures and presentation of HEMA. We tell them what it is, what it was, how it is today. We have people sparring to see with different weapons to see how they are, how it is. We try with articles. For example, in military history magazines, there are a couple of us, including myself, that will cooperate with some of them in the sense there is an article for a battle, I don't know, a medieval battle, and in an inlay we offer our experience how the weapons that we're using at this battle were actually used. So yes, we even been on TV 2 times, in national-wide channels. We even presented our stuff to events like Fantasticon, Comic-Con, you know, games, movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the thing is, the funny thing is that we got more people when we do in a municipality or like in an event like the War Museum, rather than these Comic-Con and Fantasticon people. I think that these people are prefer to play with swords through their computer and not the actual thing.
That's normal.
Yeah, we get a number of those where people find they might actually have to exercise, and that seems to cause a lot of distress to people.
Yes.
Well, George, what direction do you feel that the Greek HEMA scene should take now?
Look, in the last year, we made the Hellenic HEMA Federation. Now there's a federation, official federation behind it. We could not do it earlier because the laws, the sports law in Greece is very specific that if you want to make a federation, an international federation must be in existence. As you know, probably be aware, the International Federation was established in 2014. And now, through the federation, it gives us, because it's a recognized body, a federal recognized body, gives you more access to museums, monasteries that they may have treatises, and in general, public sector things that we didn't have that easy access before as a club. Plus, we have started doing tournaments. The first tournament was Athens Longsword, May 2015, with nylons. Now it will be with steels. And as you probably know, we already did our first international event in June, called HEMAthon. We had participants from, instructors and participants from 8 different countries, so it was quite international actually. And we try to make this as a yearly event because we want to grow it bigger and make it more interesting with workshops, with tournaments, with lectures. We want to present a full package and not just tournament or just workshops. We want all. That's where we're heading. At least one event, an international event per year, and a couple of national events per year also.
Yeah, George, I want to know when the next big event in Greece will be.
Our next big event is in June 2017. It's the HEMAthon second year, in 9 and 11 June. This weekend. Our more local event, it's next month. It's Effect Sule, organized by the Marx Bruder Guild Hellas, where 3 clubs will do a tournament, Longsword and Dusak, and then have beers just to celebrate.
Okay, cool. Things are happening in Greece. That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, just one last thing on that. On the national event there, where is the national event?
We have found a place yet. We're looking at another 2. It's in Athens, but the place is not confirmed yet. That's why I'm not telling you.
No, I think I'm just thinking about it. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it from the point of view of anyone who might want to take a bit of a HEMA holiday and perhaps do some sightseeing as well. So obviously Athens is a very, very good place to go.
Yes, because it's central, he can go on the islands. First of all, you can see the Acropolis and the Parthenon. There are some really beautiful and things from ancient, from antiquity that you can see. And you can go by ship to every island you want in the Aegean Sea. So it will be a good thing to combine vacation and HEMA event.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Okay, George, thank you very much for all your time.
I thank you for giving me the chance to speak about the HEMA.
Cheers then. Bye-bye.
Cool. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.